Hi, this is Terry. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're doing something a little bit different. I am taking my husband Zeke flying after almost 15 years since he was last in the helicopter with me. Now we're gonna head on in, meet up with my CFI so we can confirm the route as we head on out for a bay tour. Hopefully we can go underneath the Golden Gate Bridge, around Alcatraz, around the city. It is supposed to be an absolutely gorgeous day. Anyway, let's go. I often get asked why I fly helicopters versus airplanes and how I became a helicopter pilot. So why do I fly helicopters and not airplanes? I joke and answer because anyone can fly an airplane. As for how I became a helicopter pilot, this story starts when I was 8 years old, when I got to go up in a helicopter for the very first time. It was at an air show at the Hayward Airport where my dad typically flew his Cessna 152 airplane. When I was inside the helicopter, I remember thinking to myself, one day I'm going to fly one of these. And I did not tell anybody until decades later when I told my husband Zeke. Fast forward to 2002 when we moved down the peninsula from San Francisco, and we would drive by the San Carlos airport, which had a couple of helicopters. And I would say to my husband, every time we went by, one day I'm going to fly one of those. And I think by the time I turned 38, he got really sick of it and decided to give me a discovery flight for my birthday. Today I asked him what he thought my response was going to be to the discovery flight. And he said he was 100% confident that I would choose not to pursue it and become a helicopter pilot. He was confident that I would find it to be too expensive, too time consuming, too loud, or too something, and I would just decide not to do it. I knew that if I didn't just jump into it and I took the time to learn more about it and plan it and figure out how much time and money it was going to cost, that there was no way I would actually go through with it. What I should have done, though, was research flight instructors or CFIs. I decided to just start working with the guy who took me up for the discovery flight, and that was a big mistake. He ended up being more interested in building his own hours than he was in making me a confident and safe and competent helicopter pilot. So after 2 months of working with him and trying to find a way to make it work, I fired him, bounced around between a couple of flight instructors for another 2 months until I found Monica. Monica was amazing. She was 20 years old. She had just finished her flight instructor school, and I was her very first student. And Stu, if you're watching this, I know you disagree with me on this, but fight me. Within 2 months, I passed my written exam with 100%. The next month, I had soloed, and then I spent the winter getting ready for my check ride. And in March, 11 months after my discovery flight, I became a privately rated helicopter pilot. It was one of the hardest things I have ever done. Now, some things were easy, like talking on the radio, surprise, surprise. But other things like aerodynamics and mechanics, those did not come so easily to me. Fortunately, Monica was super patient and an incredible instructor. A gal named Maggie helped get me to fly straight and level. I was really struggling with that. What was really great about the place where I got my private rating through was that it was woman-owned and operated. It was called Golden Gate Helicopters, and I flew out of San Carlos Airport, and it was owned by a woman named Lori, and the chief pilot was a woman named Amber. And as I said, I had Monica, and then I also had Maggie. It was fantastic. Once I had my private rating, I got my 10 hours post-certification, and then my very first passenger was my husband, Zeke. After flying around the Bay Area for about 5 years, I realized that my knowledge had really diminished, and I wanted to be and feel safer in the helicopter. It's all about risk mitigation for me, so I decided to pursue my commercial rating. I also had a confidence issue. There was this guy named John Halalzi, yep, I'm calling him out, who after I did my check ride and I passed, said that the flight examiner only passed me because he thought I was cute. I don't know why I listened to him, but I did, and that just destroyed my confidence in the cockpit. I worked with a really great guy named Paul Harris who took me through my commercial rating. The examiner was really impressed with my binders and my organization and my knowledge. I think the oral portion of it was about 7 hours. And then we went out for the flight portion. I did everything right except for the confined space landing, which I screwed up because I couldn't find the spot. And then I had to go back a couple weeks later after working with an amazing gal named Rebecca to finally pass, and at 45, I became a commercially rated helicopter pilot. When I did some calculations at the time, there were about 5,000 women helicopter pilots in the world, and only a small fraction of those were commercially rated. This is something I have been and continue to be really proud of. Now there's probably closer to 10,000, with still a small percentage being commercially rated. Until 4 years ago, I flew fairly regularly. I love to fly because when I get above it all, I can get above it all, and I just feel so much better. I love taking people up on bay tours, and depending upon where I can rent from, because there are very few places in the Bay Area that I can, the route is a little bit different. When I started flying, I was flying out of San Carlos, and it was fun to fly up towards the San Francisco airport, and oftentimes I would get clearance to cross over midfield, which was a lot of fun, and then fly around to San Francisco, over to Alcatraz, around Alcatraz, over to the Golden Gate Bridge, and either under it or over it. Of course, I prefer going under it. Sometimes I'd have to fly out of Palo Alto. Sometimes I'd have to fly out of Hayward. Right now, the only place that I can rent from is in Hayward, which is across the bridge from us. There was this one time flying up in San Francisco, and we were getting ready to go underneath the Golden Gate Bridge. And we came out the other side only to be called off by the Coast Guard, who was doing some practice missions of some sort. That felt a little awkward. This actually reminds me, when my dad flew when I was a kid, my mom decided to take lessons because she was a spouse and there were spouse lessons of some sort. She was flying solo over Hayward someplace, got lost, and they had to shut down the Hayward airspace for my mom to be able to land. I can relate to this. Even though I know the area really well, it's not that difficult for me to get a little bit lost or not to be able to see some of the landmarks. I love taking people up who have never been in a helicopter before. My friend Donovan came up a number of years ago, and he was just secretly taking pictures before. I'm like, dude, take as many pictures as you like. I love that you love this. I love that you're like a little kid experiencing something fun for the first time. Flying in the Bay Area is actually really challenging. There are 3 major airports within a 25 nautical mile range. You've got San Francisco, Oakland, and San Jose, plus you've got a whole bunch of smaller airports. It is a busy, busy place, but I actually love it because I think it would be really boring if I didn't have to have all of my senses engaged all at the same time. When I stopped flying 4 years ago, I didn't realize I was stopping. I thought it was just a temporary pause when my CFI Rebecca got pregnant and also went to go work at the sheriff's department. I really didn't want to start over with another CFI. I'd flown with so many different ones, and they all have different requirements, and it just gets exhausting trying to figure out what their targets, goals, and expectations are. I tend to prefer to fly with women. They tend to be better communicators, more supportive, with a few exceptions. Paul, you're one of those. Guys just seem to want to prove something, and that does not feel super safe or super helpful in the cockpit. But this summer, I decided that once again, it was now or never. I needed to get back into the cockpit. Every year was making it so that I would be less likely to return to flying, and not flying is not an option for me. And I just realized that once again, my first passenger after the hiatus was Zeke. Fortunately, he was a lot more engaged than the last time when he read the newspaper all the way up to Napa. Yeah, that was a little bit annoying because really, where's the joy in that?
Well, that was a very successful bay tour. Had a lot of fun. Zeke, what'd you think?
Outstanding. Highly recommend.
Highly recommend flying with me.
10 out of 10.
Or just
12 out of 10.
A bay tour?
Oh, top notch.
Do you regret that birthday gift?
Not at all. 'Cause I'm not stupid.
And with that, need to head back home, get back to work on the computer, back to reality, back to the ground. As always, let go of perfection, take some risks, and have some fun.